This is an HMT watch, which is made in India. HMT stands for Hindustan Machine Tools, which was a government-owned corporation that manufactured a lot of different things in India, and watches was one of their more famous products. This watch is kind of interesting. It's got a citizen design movement in it that HMT licensed the production of. So the movement's made in India by HMT using a citizen design. And I think this one dates from the early 1980s, but I'm not 100% certain. But right now it's running way too fast, and as we'll see when we put it on the Timegrapher, it's got a lot of issues with the movement. I took the back of it off before I started this video and just took a look at it, and the hairspring on the balance wheel looked like it was really filthy, like it had a lot of dust on it, and I think that's causing a lot of the problems. So what I'm going to do with this is completely disassemble it, clean the movement, re-lubricate it, put a new mainspring in it, and put it back together and re-lubricate it and make sure that everything is adjusted correctly, and I think we should get it back to good working order. It doesn't look like anything is broken or damaged on it. It simply looks like the movement looks really filthy. And I'm going to go ahead and replace the mainspring as I usually do when I service a watch, because that will, I think, help with it too. This is the manual wind movement. HMT made some automatics as well, and they were also citizen designs. But this one is a manual winding one, and it's a fairly primitive movement for something that was made as late as this was, because it doesn't have a movable hairspring stud for adjusting beat error. But it is a good movement design. As I said, it's a citizen design. Citizen assisted them in making these and licensed them, or gave them a license to manufacture them. So it should be a good watch once we get everything cleaned up and put back together. Here are our initial Timegrapher readings for the HMT watch. This is after I demagnetized the movement. When I first got it and put it on the Timegrapher would not give an amplitude or a beat error. All it showed was a lot of snow all over the screen. It showed a high rate, but it wouldn't give an amplitude or a beat error. It simply couldn't decipher them. So I demagnetized the movement, and now we're getting actual readings out of it, but it's still pretty bad. It's showing a rate of 144 seconds per day fast, amplitude of 300 degrees, and beat error of 0.9 milliseconds. Now when I first put this on here right before I started this recording, the amplitude was only like 128. Now it's suddenly jumped up to 300. When I looked at the movement after I took the back of it off, the hairspring is real dirty looking. It looks like it's got dust all over it, and the balance wheel wasn't swinging very far, so I don't know why it's suddenly showing a higher amplitude now. I'm going to have to look at it again, take the back off. But I suspect that what this really needs is it needs to be cleaned and relubricated, and that'll fix the problems we're seeing. So this is what we're starting from. We'll see how it improves once we get done cleaning and relubricating it. The first thing we need to do is get the movement out of the case. Now this watch has got a conventional screw-on case back, so it'll be easy to get open. The first time I opened this, it was a lot tighter, but I had it open before I made the video because I wanted to look at the movement, so I didn't tighten it down real super tight when I put it back on. And this has got a rubber gasket around the back that we'll probably need to replace. Now in here is the movement, and we need to get the stem out first so that we can pull the movement out. And it looks like this doesn't have a stem release screw. It looks like it has a button. So we'll take a screwdriver and push the button there to release it. Now before I do that, I think that I want to get the movement stopped, so I need to release the spring tension in the barrel. And the way that we're going to do that is we need to move the click out of the way while I hold on to the stem and let the tension slowly spin through my fingers. I've been unwinding the spring off camera because it was too hard for me to see the click to do this effectively under the camera. But it's interesting here, I've got it mostly unwound, but look how little amplitude it has now. The balance wheel is barely swinging back and forth very much at all. Hopefully the only problem with this is that it's just very dirty inside. So we'll see once we start disassembling it. Alright, we've got it totally wound down now, so pushing this button here should release the stem. And we want to push this using something like a screwdriver. You don't want to use like a pointed tool because that can damage these buttons on some movements. So I'm going to use this small screwdriver here and just push it with it. Oh, there it goes. Alright, the stem came out. I had to hold that button down the whole time while I was pulling the stem out until it released. It released when it was about halfway out. Now the next thing we need to do is get the movement out of the case. And there's a movement spacer in there, that plastic ring, but I think it should come out with the movement. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay my casing cushion on top of the watch, flip it over, and see if there it goes. I had to kind of tap it, but it's coming right out now. You can see it's actually got a round dial that sits in there, and then this kind of squared shape is from the bezel. So now what I need to do is we need to get the dial off and the hands, and I need to figure out how that movement spacer comes off too. That looks like it might lift off once I get the dial off, but I need to figure out how to get the dial off because I don't see dial screws on the sides of the movement. Oh, there it is. It just pops right off. Okay. Now let's see if we can find the dial screws. And there's where the stem goes in. I think that's a dial screw right there. And it looks like there's another one, so there's two of them here. So let's get the hands off first. I decided to put the stem back in temporarily because I needed to move the hands. So I've got it in, and I've got it pulled out to the time setting position. And what I want to do is I want to get it so all the hands are pretty much on top of each other like it is now. That'll make it easier to pull them out without damaging them. Because when they were at an angle to each other, trying to lever them off with the hand levers, it's possible to bend the hands. It's easier if they're all lined up. So now that I've got that done, let's go ahead and take the hands off. To remove the hands, I'm going to lay a piece of plastic over the dial and hands. And this will protect the dial and hands from getting damaged by the hand levers. I had to loosen the dial screws because the dial actually was sitting crooked on here, and it was higher on one side than another, and I couldn't get the hand levers under one side of the hands. And it looks like this has fixed that problem. It looks like I've loosened the hour hand and minute hand, but not the second hand, so I need to pry a little bit higher. I want to move the hands so that they're all still even with each other. We'll try this again. The plastic protects the dial and the hands from being damaged. It also keeps the hands from flying up in the air when they pop off. This one's hard because the hands were so close to the dial that the hand levers keep wanting to slip out. I'm having trouble getting them in on there all the way. I'm afraid I'm going to scratch the dial or break the hands. This is a dial protector, and I didn't use it before because the hands were too close to the dial. But they're loosened up enough I might be able to get the levers underneath the hands with this in place without scratching the dial. Let's try it again. There we go, finally. Hopefully I didn't damage anything when I did this. Looks like the spindle for the second hand, everything is intact, so we're good. You see the hour wheel, the cannon pinion, and the spindle for the second hand are all there. They're all intact, so I think we're all good with everything. That was the most difficult hand removal I've ever had to do on a watch. Here's our dial, and it came off too because I had to loosen the dial screws so that I could get the dial to set level before I took the hands off. So you can see here it's got the two long dial feet that it sits on the end of the movement with. I've taken the stem back out so I can put it here on the casing cushion. I can't get this thing to stick into a movement holder. It keeps wanting to pop right back out because the sides of it aren't, the way the sides of it are designed is kind of screwy. So I'm going to have to take it apart like this. The first thing I'm going to take off here is the dial washer and then the hour wheel. Now I need to get the cannon pinion off, but before I do that, I need to take off this bridge here that covers the minute wheel so I can take the minute wheel off, because the minute wheel has to come off before the cannon pinion. If I pull the cannon pinion before I take the minute wheel off, the leaves of the cannon pinion could damage the leaves of the minute wheel. So we need to take the minute wheel off first, and that looks like this is held on by two screws right here. So I'm going to go ahead and loosen those first. I've taken the two screws out that hold this bridge on. This is kind of unusual because this one has this bridge that holds the minute wheel down is separate from the setting cap bridge, which is this right here. Normally, this also covers the minute wheel on most watches that I've seen. So we're going to go ahead and lift the minute wheel off. And then I'm going to take out the intermediate wheel here. And then, I'm not sure if I can get the clutch and the winding pinion out here or not. Let's see if they'll come out. There's the winding pinion. And here's the clutch. I think the clutch is held in place by the yoke, so I can't get it out until I take the yoke out. So I think the next thing I want to do is I don't want to pull the Cannon Pinion yet. I just remembered I've got the second hand rides on that tiny little post in the middle of the Cannon Pinion, and that's attached to the bottom of the fourth wheel. And I want to take the fourth wheel out before I take the Cannon Pinion out, because if I pull the Cannon Pinion, if I'm not careful, I could bend that post that's running through the center of it, and I don't want that to happen. So let's go ahead and let's flip it over and take apart the gear train. And once we do that, then we can take the Cannon Pinion off. It goes into a movement holder well when it's got the Watchmaker side up. It just doesn't want to stick in the movement holder when the dial side is up for some reason, because of the shape of the edges of the movement. Well, first we need to get the ratchet wheel off, because the ratchet wheel goes over the fourth wheel there. And then once we get the ratchet wheel off, then we can take off the train bridge, and then we can get to that wheel that has the spindle that goes down through the center of the Cannon Pinion. This was a strange one. This screw on the ratchet wheel was a left-handed screw. I've never seen a ratchet wheel with a left-handed screw before. I read online when I was doing some research on this movement that it had a left-handed screw on the ratchet wheel, and I was wondering if that was really true, because I'd never heard of such a thing, but it is. That's how it came out. So we'll go ahead and lift the ratchet wheel off here. Now I need to get the crown wheel off. Also, the crown wheel usually the crown wheel has a left-handed screw on most movements. I wonder if that's the case on this one, or if they've decided to have a normal right-handed screw on it. A left-handed screw is a screw that turns the opposite direction of a normal screw. Normally you would turn a screw counterclockwise to loosen it. On this screw on the ratchet wheel, I had to turn it clockwise to loosen it, which is the way you would normally tighten a screw, but this screw loosened that way. So that's something to be aware of if you take apart one of these movements. And the Citizen movement that it's based on is probably the same way. It turns out the crown wheel screw was a left-handed screw as well, so they did at least stick to convention with this screw, but not with the ratchet wheel. Let's see if there's a washer on here too. Most of these movements have a washer on the crown wheel post. Oh yeah, there is. There we go. Now I need to take off the click and the click spring too, and then we'll have everything off the top of the barrel bridge. And then the next thing I'm going to do after that is going to be to take off the train bridge so that we can get the fourth wheel out. Now right here is the click, and it's held on by a single screw. We'll take that out and lift the click out, and the click spring goes from under the click in this little groove right here and then around to this little hole. It's shaped like a sort of a cane, which is pretty conventional. Lots of watch movements have a similar design for their click spring. Getting that out is going to be kind of a pain, because when you try to pry it out of there, it's going to want to fly across the room, so you have to kind of hold a finger over it while you pop it up with a screwdriver. I've taken the click out, and I've got the click spring loosened here, so I'll go ahead and pick it up. It still wanted to try to fly away, didn't it? There we go. Okay, next thing to do is take off the train bridge. The train bridge is held on by two screws here and here, which I've already removed. So let's go ahead and see if we can lift it off. And we may have to pry it up with a screwdriver. Often the train bridge is stuck down on these. They're usually little slots. There's one right here where you can stick a screwdriver in. There we go. See how it's popped off, and there should be one on the other end too. There we go. We can just lift it right off. And then here is our fourth wheel, which is the one that goes all the way down through the Cannon Pinion. So we want to lift it out very carefully so we don't damage it. See, there's the top of the escape wheel right there too. We want to be sure not to damage that, because I just bumped up against it. There we go. There's our fourth wheel. Now we can take the Cannon Pinion off, but I want to get the rest of the train bridge out, or the train wheels out too. So here's our third wheel. And the escape wheel, I think I'm not going to be able to get out yet. I'm going to have to take this here off, and the probably the balance cock to get it out. And I think this bridge here is for the center wheel, because the center wheel is underneath this jewel right here. And the center wheel is what the Cannon Pinion attaches to. It attaches to its lower spindle, so we need to get the Cannon Pinion off before we can get the center wheel out. I've decided to go ahead and remove the barrel bridge, and it's held in place by two screws, one here and one here, which is kind of unusual. Most movements, it seems, use 3 screws to hold their barrel bridge on. This one only uses 2, and I'm going to have to pry it up with a screwdriver, I believe, too. There we go. Let me just lift that right off. And then we can take the barrel out, and it just lifts right out as well. Now we need to open the barrel so that we can see the condition of the mainspring. And I bought a new mainspring for it that's on its way. It's going to be here probably in about a week or so. Let's go ahead and open that. I've got to set it on the counter here with the cap side up. And if I push down on the sides of it, it'll pop the cap off. Yeah, you just heard it snap. That pop the cap off then. And we can pick it up with the tweezers and take it off. And there's the mainspring in there. It's got a pretty large mainspring. It's filling up most of the barrel, which is unusual. I wonder if that's the mainspring that came with it originally. It looks like it is an alloy mainspring, so it's not one of those old steel ones. But this watch isn't that old either. I think this dates from the early 1980s, so that's not surprising. I need to get the barrel arbor out, and I don't want it to go flying across the room, so I'm going to hold that with my fingers while I'm trying to pull it out. Oh, the spring's going to come out now, too. Yep, there it goes. Oh, the barrel arbor's still stuck in it. Mainspring looks fairly healthy. It's not badly set or anything, but I'm going to go ahead and put a new one in just to be sure because the amplitude on this was, I think, very low. We can see how the mainspring is. It's got a little bit of coil around the area where the arbor goes, which is normal. That helps it stick to the arbor. And then a fairly straight middle section, and then a larger circle at the end. The next thing I want to do is take out the balance cock and balance wheel because the balance wheel is over the top of the center wheel, so I need to get it off before I can take the center wheel out. Before I take the balance cock off, though, I want to take off the upper jewels for the balance. And this uses the Citizen Parashock system. So this is different than the ankle block system we've worked on already on other movements. This one, the spring has two tines on it that insert into here and then rotate to lock it in place. And so I'm going to have to rotate it until one of the tines goes to this opening, and then I can hopefully pull it out then. I've never worked on one of these before, so this is my first time doing this. And on this one, the spring actually comes completely off of the balance. It's not hinged to it or permanently attached to it the way an ankle block spring is. So it's going to be a bit of a challenge because when these come off, sometimes they can fly away and get lost. And I don't want that to happen because I don't know how easy it would be to find another one to replace it. So I'm going to do this with the movement inside a big plastic Ziploc bag. That way, if the spring does fly off, it's going to fly off inside that bag and not get lost. Oh, there it is. Now it's turning a little bit. Getting there. Almost there. I had to look at it through an eye loop to double check how far along we were. Okay, it looks like one of the tines is free, so I'm going to take it out of the bag and see if I can pull it out with the tweezers then. Okay, that was easy. The spring just moved right out with the tweezers, and the jewel is still attached to it. I'm going to use my jewel picker to pick it up. There we go. I don't know if that jewel comes off the spring or if it's just stuck to it from lubricants or not. It'd be a lot easier if it stays attached to it, though. Make it a lot easier to put back together. Now, there should be a lower jewel in there that should come out as well. It's not going to come out, so it looks like there may be something holding that in there too. I need to look at that through a loop and see what the design of that is. This is the very first time I've ever done anything with a Parashock system, so I'm not really familiar with how they're put together. Alright, it looks like that the lower jewel is held in place in the balance cock with a spring of its own, and I'm going to leave that alone. I'm not going to try to take that out. There's no good reason to take it out. It'll be clean just fine leaving it in the balance cock. When we clean the balance cock and balance wheel, that jewel will get cleaned too. I'm afraid if I take that out of there, it's going to be almost impossible to get back in with having that little tiny spring that has to go in there to hold it in place. It doesn't just simply drop in the way an ankle block lower jewel does, so I'm going to leave that alone. There's an identical system on the lower part of the base plate. That's the lower balance jewels for the balance wheel. We'll take those off later on, so we'll use the exact same procedure to disassemble the spring for that one to get the upper jewel off. For right now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take off the screw that holds the balance cock on and remove the balance cock and balance wheel. And once we do that, then we can turn the movement base plate over and take off the cannon pinion. And then after the cannon pinion's off, then we can remove the center wheel. I've got the balance cock screw off, so let's go ahead and take the balance cock off here. to be careful not to stretch the spring too much. Now what I'm going to do for storing this until we're ready to use it again is I want to pick up the balance wheel and the balance cock at the same time, real gently, flip them over, and then get the balance wheel situated so that its spindle goes into the jewel. And what I'm trying to do here is I want the hairspring to stay concentric, which it will do if I get the balance wheel back into its jewel. Because if we store this with the hairspring distorted, the hairspring may permanently distort and then it won't work anymore. And then we will store it upside down like this in our parts tray until we're ready to clean it. Okay, now we're ready to take care of the Cannon Pinion. When I picked the movement up out of the movement holder and turned it over, the clutch fell out, and that's one of the parts of the keyless works we hadn't removed yet, so since that's out, I'll go ahead and put that in the parts tray as well. This is the Cannon Pinion right here. It sticks up in the middle of the base plate. It's got a gear at the bottom of it and a tube sticking out of the top. We're going to remove that using a pen vise. Now there's a special tool called a Cannon Pinion removing tool that you can buy for this, but it's not really necessary. You can use a pen vise for it as well, and that's what I'm going to do. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to stick the pen vise over the tube and tighten it down over the tube and then pull it out. Here's our pen vise. Now this one I'm using has 4 interchangeable jaws, so you can choose different sizes. And I've got the smallest size one installed right now because the Cannon Pinion is very thin on these wristwatches. And this is a nice one to have. Some people buy pen vises where they have a set of several different ones. And this one here has basically 4 pen vises in one because of the interchangeable jaws. It's made by a Japanese company called Tamiya Craft Tools. And it wasn't terribly expensive. I bought this on Amazon. I can't remember what I paid for it, but I think it was only, I don't know, $10 or $15. And it's worked really well for me. So what I'm going to do is put the jaws of the pen vise over the Cannon Pinion. Just like that. And then I'm going to tighten it down. And then just pull gently straight out. You don't want to pull at an angle. You might bend or break the lower spindle of the center wheel that the Cannon Pinion rides on. So you want to make sure you pull straight. You can pull with a little slight twisting motion too to help get it off. There we go. That one took a little more force to pull off than some of them. I was afraid it was going to break, but it looks like it came off just fine. So here you can see the Cannon Pinion stuck in the pen vise. We'll deposit that in the parts tray. And now you can see the lower spindle of the center wheel, which is what the Cannon Pinion rides on, sticking down through the base plate. So now we can remove the center wheel. And the center wheel has its own bridge that has to be taken off first. So I'm going to put the movement back into the movement holder. The center wheel bridge is held on by a single screw right here. So I'm going to remove that screw, and then we should be able to lift the bridge off. And then we can get the center wheel out, and we can get the escape wheel out, because the escape wheel is partially hidden under that bridge as well. I've got the screw removed, and the bridge is on there pretty tight. I'm going to have to pry it up, I think, with a screwdriver here. And I want to be careful not to damage anything. Trying to find a spot I can slip a screwdriver under. I think this spot right here should work. There we go. This looks kind of clumsy. It's because I'm trying to do this while looking at a camera screen, and that's hard to do compared to looking at it with an eye loop. I'm much less clumsy and more skilled at doing it that way. There we go. There's the center wheel bridge. And then we should be able to just lift the center wheel out. And it looks like the escape wheel goes over the top of the center wheel, so we're going to have to remove it first. There we go. And then we can take the center wheel. And I think I'm going to have to push it up through the bottom to get it to come out. There we go. I pushed it up through the bottom with the tweezers. Using an eye loop, I was able to see well enough to stick the tweezers in through the bottom to push it out. It was just kind of stuck in there because of the dried lubricants and such. So it finally came out. Here's our center wheel. You can see the thick spindle it has because that's hollow, so that the fourth wheel spindle can go through it to carry the second hand. And the Cannon Pinion attaches to this. Okay, next thing we need to do is we need to remove the pallet fork and pallet bridge. And it's held on by a single screw right here. I've taken the pallet bridge screw out, so let's see if we can get the pallet bridge out here. And it's coming off pretty easily. The parts used on this, like the bridges, are much thinner than the bridges used on the Swiss movements I've worked on so far. And it looks like our pallet fork is stuck on the pallet fork bridge. I need to check that and see if it's going to come out or if that's permanently attached. But it should come out of there. It's probably just stuck on by dry lubricants right now. There we go, got them separated. We'll put these off in the parts tray as well. Okay, the next thing we need to do is flip the movement over in the movement holder and take apart the rest of the keyless works. Everything on the Watchmaker side of the movement has been removed now, so we need to go to the dial side. Since there's nothing on the Watchmaker side of the movement anymore, we can just put this on the Watchmaker's paper on the table instead of trying to mess around with that movement holder because it's so fiddly. Things keep wanting to pop out of it when I put too much pressure on the base plate. It keeps wanting to tilt and such because this doesn't have a real thick sides for it to grip onto. So what we need to do is we need to take off, first off we need to get off the set bridge, which is this right here. And it also has a long lever that comes back here. It's a spring for the detent lever, the detent spring. So it looks like there's a single screw that holds that in place. We'll go ahead and take that off. I've taken off the screw for the set bridge and the detent lever spring. And I had to kind of stick a screwdriver under the detent lever spring and kind of pop it up off the detent lever so that I could lift the bridge then. There we go. Now, here's our detent lever and our yoke spring. So we need to get those out. And the yoke spring should come out next. The yoke spring is going to be something of a challenge to get out without it flying across the room. We need to get off the spring right back here that's the yoke spring. And that's a cane-shaped spring too, just like on most of these movements we've worked with. And I'm going to remove that off camera because what I'm going to have to do is put a finger over it and pry it up with a screwdriver to get it dislodged from the spot that it's stuck into there. And if I do that without keeping my finger over it carefully, it's going to come flying off into God knows where, and I'll never find it again. And I don't know how easy it would be to find replacement parts for this movement if I mess up and lose a part. So I'm going to be extra careful with that. And I want to do that while looking at it under an eye loop instead of trying to look at the camera screen. I got the spring off, and we had a little bit of a scare with that because even though I was careful to hold my fingers over it when I was prying it up, it went flying anyway. And it took me some time to find it. It ended up landing on another table about 5 feet away from me. These things can fly a long distance. So here is our spring. The next thing we need to remove from the base plate is the yoke and the detent lever. And there's the yoke, which just popped off when I was trying to pull it off. Now the detent lever doesn't seem to want to lift off. I'm not sure what's holding that in place. I need to get a closer look at that and see. On most of these movements that we've worked on, the detent lever is held on by the screw that is also the retaining screw for the stem, but this doesn't have a stem retaining screw. It had that button we pushed. So I'm going to need to look at this through an eye loop and see what it is I'm missing. The detent lever is attached to the button right here that we pushed to release the stem. And I think that what's holding all this together is this screw right here. I think that holds the assembly together that all this is part of. So I'm going to go ahead and take that screw off and see what happens with that. I've removed that screw, so let's see what happens now. Let's see if we can lift this out of here. Yeah, there it is. The detent lever is coming off. And it looks like there's some other stuff attached to the bottom of it too. Okay, this whole thing is lifting out. So there's the detent lever, and there's a piece of metal with a hole on it. I think that's what the screw went through that I just took out. Okay, and there's the button that we pushed to release the stem, and it's attached to that piece of metal with the hole in it. So I think that's like a sort of a spring lever that when you push down, it pushes the detent lever out of the way so that the stem can be removed. This is the first time I've worked on a watch that uses this kind of a system. This is what more modern watches use, unlike the older ones we've been working on that use a screw to hold all this in place. They have a screw down retaining screw for the stem instead of using a button. I don't know if the detent lever comes off that or not. I'm inclined to just leave it together, but I need to find out so when I clean the parts they don't come apart on me. But it looks like they are stuck together as a single unit, so I don't think they're going to come apart. So I'm going to go ahead and put those in the parts tray as is. And I believe this is the last thing we need to take off. All the rest of the keyless works is taken apart. Oh, we do have one more thing we need to take apart. I forgot the lower cap jewel for the balance wheel. We need to get that off. So that's the last thing we're going to have to do. I also want to take out the dial screws. They're still stuck in the movement base plate because when I wash the base plate, they may fall out. So it's best to go ahead and remove those before we before we clean the movement. But we're going to have to take this off now. And I'm going to take that off using the exact same procedure that I used for the upper one. Let's stick a tweezers in there and rotate this until it comes out. I went ahead and rotated the retaining housing for the jewel off camera so that I could lift it out. It's easier to do looking through an eye loop than trying to look on the screen of the camera. And this should come out. Actually, I'm just going to use a jewel picker like I did the last time. This should all come out as a single unit, just like the top one did, hopefully. There we go. And I'm not sure how the bottom one of this one is, if it'll come out or not. Oh no, it lifted right out. This one doesn't have a spring. Oh, it does have a spring. I see it on there now. I don't know if you can see it on the jewel picker here. Let's see if I can focus it better. There we go. That does have a little spring surrounding that, so that one just lifted right out, though the one on the top didn't want to do that. I'm going to have to double check that one on the top, make sure it's not going to fall out when we clean the balance wheel, because if it is, I'm going to take it out of there. Okay, everything is taken apart now except for removing these dial screws here. I'm going to take those off, and I'll do that off camera. And then everything is disassembled. It'll be ready to clean now. And I'm not going to make a separate video showing the cleaning of this movement because the cleaning procedure is the same for pretty much all watch movements. So I'll put a link in the description to my video on watch cleaning so you can see the procedure for doing that. And then right now I'm waiting for a new mainspring to arrive that I've ordered. It should be here probably in a week or so. So once I get that new mainspring, by the time it gets here, I'll have the cleaning done. So everything will be ready to start reassembling. And once that gets here, I'll reassemble it and we'll make a new video showing that.